Well, good morning and welcome to Life Moments. I want to share with you a life moment that I had written several years ago, actually in 2016. And I just found it going through my stuff and I just thought it was fitting for today. Let me read for you Romans 13, 1 to 7. It goes like this. Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers hold no terror for those who do right, but for those who do wrong. Do you want to be free from fear of the one in authority? Then do what is right, and you will be commanded. For the one in authority is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for rulers do not bear the sword for no reason. They are God's servants, agents of wrath, to bring punishment on the wrongdoer. Therefore, it is necessary to submit to the authorities, not only because of possible punishment, but also as a matter of conscience. This is also why you pay taxes, for the authorities are God's servants who give their full time to governing. Give to everyone that you owe them. If you owe taxes, pay taxes. If revenue, then revenue. If respect, then respect. If honor, then honor. Do you want to be free from fear of the one in authority? Then do what is right, says Romans 13. How often do we complain about our authorities, our bosses, our government? God says to do what is right, and we will be free from fear. How do we deal with people above us who we feel are not making the right decisions? Well, according to this verse, we are to submit to our authorities as they were put there from God. This is uncomfortable stuff. I get it. Let me unpack this for you. So, loyalty to the state or government was a standard literary topic among ancient writers, and Paul is writing this letter to a city he had not yet visited. Now, these congregations, they were integrated between both Jews and non-Jews, and Paul had a reputation that he was being dismissive to the Torah. So he is addressing issues of dispute and trying to create unity among these congregations. Now, Nero at the time, he was in charge, but he had not yet started persecuting Christians or repressing other groups that were, and he was actually quite popular in Greece, which is where Paul is writing this letter from. But soon after this, I think about a decade after, the persecutions of the Christians came into place. So perhaps Paul could see trouble arising, and he was trying to protect the Christians. We don't really know, but there were already signs of dispute and tension between the Christian Jews and the Gentiles. In fact, Paul was aware that some of the Jewish community had been expelled from Rome just prior to this writing. So, what does this mean for us? Well, I know this is a really controversial topic, especially in these times where there is a lot of hatred towards the government and what they are doing. But as Jesus' followers, we need to understand what is being said and how to apply it to our lives. So when it was written, philosophers and moralists commonly wrote on how government officials should be acting, as well as how the people should be acting. And there are many examples in the Bible where governing officials did not make great laws, right? But here Paul is telling his readers to A, these officials were put there by God, and B, to submit to them. Why? Well, let's look at verse 5 again. Therefore, it is necessary to submit to the authorities, not only because of possible punishment, and in those days it was death, but also as a matter of conscience. And I love this because Paul is saying you need to listen to the authorities, pay taxes, do the right thing, so your conscience is clear. And I think sometimes we feel that we are above the law, and we're not. We try to cheat the system, and we shouldn't. Why? So our conscience is clear, and we can live freely knowing we've done the right thing. And this applies to your boss at work and any authority. When we live according to the rules, there is freedom we experience. And this is what Paul is trying to say in this passage. We are to live in unity with one another. Now, that being said, and I know you are questioning, what happens when we disagree with what is going on? Well, I think this is difficult and not so easy to respond to. And I'm researching this right now and trying to look at times in the scripture that Christians went against the people in charge. And there were several. There's several passages talk about this, actually. Let's just look at Daniel in the lion's den, right? He went against King Darius's decree and he kept on praying to God instead of the golden image of the king. And we read King Nebuchadnezzar sent Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to the fiery furnace. And even Peter and John were put into prison because they were against the law and preached about God. But here's the difference that I've observed so far. These stories that we read about were against the law of serving God. They were not necessarily about policies on controversial issues. And of course, when we're told not to worship God, but instead to worship another God, then this is when we need to go against our authorities. And the Old Testament's narrative is that there is only one God. That's what we learn about. But according to this passage that we're reading today, it is better for us to listen and do the right thing. And I know this is extremely hard for some of you. It's hard when it comes to our governments. It's hard when it comes to our bosses. It's hard to listen to anyone in authority when our views are different. But, and I'm using a lot of buts today, let's look at the following passage in Romans 3, starting at verse 8. It says this, "Let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt to love one another. For whoever loves others has fulfilled the law. The commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and whatever other command there may be are summed up in this one command. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no harm to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law." And I can't help but think that we are in a similar circumstance as Paul mentioned in this letter. There is a lot of disunity back then and even in the churches. And Paul urged the church to love, do what is right, and be in unity. So let's try to bring back unity today. And this week, as you face challenges with your superiors, with your neighbors, with your friends, with your family, and even the government, let's think about this verse and remember, you have the power to be the best you can. My name's Carissa, and this is Life Moments.